Hey everybody, good morning. It's early and it's Jillian with Jilly Juice. So the last couple nights I have not been sleeping well, but I've been very well rested. How is that possible? You can sleep well and be well rested with mental clarity. That's definitely a feat that I never knew was possible, but it is. So yesterday good morning everybody. I did a whiteboard where I took I have like all these notes on my board here. And it's not like I don't have like a cork board, I have a wall with push pins. And so I have all of these notes, like my mind mapping and just indiscriminate ideas that come up as I am thinking about stuff. And so a friend of mine suggested that I put some kind of streamlined thing together where it shows the connections for like an elevator pitch. Okay. Someone did suggest to my group that I do some kind of like elevator pitch, which we did create something in the group. But then the next step is to create some kind of slideshow in some way that will show you the succession, which some of you have seen yesterday because I have it on a Facebook Live through my phone. But yeah, so through that process of pulling out the necessary items to show a succession of progression of point A to point Z, because it still was hazy to figure out why people die. I mean, we know about cancer, disease, and chronic illness, but people have been living with their illnesses forever. So they're not too concerned when they're hanging on to lupus or obesity or skinny fat or all these different diseases that are manageable through modern medicine. They don't seem to, they're not alarmed that they have these diseases. So it didn't really resonate. And I could tell that because not everybody is really understanding a lot of this information. They kind of get it, but they're still stuck in the symptom management with the pills, power supplements, detoxes, holistic allopathic. And so I haven't hooked them yet. Now I'm not sure I'm going to hook everybody yet still, but it's going to gain momentum. So so through the succession, through the mind mapping, and then pulling out the key things to show my friend Bridget how she would construct a very short speech to show people what is currently going on in our society, is to begin with first where we're at, the current state of our existence, which is life, but on a very prolonged death trajectory. The inevitability of death is obviously very popular in mainstream and alternative mainstream. And then all the fear and everything else is out there. So first you have to recognize how our society is constructed and understand the current thought process is that you have reproduction, you have disease, no matter at what point in time you have disease, and then you have death. That is the current thought process at this moment in time. And then I go and put in the next slide what our environment is made up of, which is the periodic tables, different elements, and new compound elements. Hey, good morning, Chris. New compound elements are created every day. Okay, so the periodic tables is always growing based upon how they put together compound elements, and then what comes out of it. Okay, and then I also have another slide that shows what biodiversity is made up of: animals, plants, and humans, fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. Okay, and so plants have minerals. They have even fatty acids. They have amino acids. They have, prohormones. They have minerals, all that. Okay, so plants have all the components, just different concentrations of it. This is why I have been harping on all of you who say that you like my information, to stop recommending remedies and detoxes to your people. You would actually save a life if you did not recommend any remedies, any detoxes, any procedures, unless they have been diagnosed by a doctor that they're in imminent death. They have to get into action in some way. So if you have a tumor and you get it diagnosed by a doctor and they say it's either benign or malignant or somewhere in between, that's when the patient will talk to their doctor to figure out what the best course of action is. Nobody on Facebook should be recommending any type of antibiotic, probiotic, supplements, shakes, detoxes, remedies to anybody, because you look at what biodiversity is made up of. It's made up of fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals, and we are using biodiversity to manage our symptoms. And then you as a person over there in Facebook land have no idea the biochemical makeup of that person. So you recommending elderberry syrup and colloidal silver and not getting a vaccine and demonizing the pharmaceutical world, and then bringing in a concoction like fire cider could actually put somebody closer to death, because you as a person in Facebook land have no freaking idea who the hell you're dealing with. And I was guilty of it too. I belonged to those holistic groups that had no freaking idea what it is I was doing. I was just parroting off the party line. Oh, hate big pharma, promote natural remedies, which are no different, except they're in a different form that you find in the garden, but it's still comprised of fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. Biodiversity is all the same stuff with different concentrations. So that's why I do get mad at people who say, oh, I like you, Jillian, I love you, Jillian, and they don't recommend my information, and they're putting out shit like fire cider. Do you realize that even though that's plants and herbs and honey, all this natural stuff, it still will put somebody over the edge if they have a major imbalance, and then you have no idea what kind of predispositions they're working with. So you could actually be accelerating their death process by recommending fire cider, kombucha, apple cider vinegar, or even elderberry syrup, colloidal silver, bentonite clay, pills, powder supplements, and detoxes. So that's why I get so incensed by those that say they like my information, but they are promoting things that are actually literally harming people. That's why I was scrutinized so much by the FBI, by the OAG, by the Federal Trade Commission, by everybody and their freaking mother, because they didn't understand the whole chemical process. That's why I got my shit tested, to make sure that they knew it was a probiotic, and it's with salt, and it's with cabbage and kale, which is not poisonous. But kombucha, apple cider vinegar, elderberry syrup, all of that is poisonous on a body that has an imbalance in their fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. And I can't express that enough. I'm telling you, some of you are freaking hard-headed, and that's why I block. Because once you are watching me, and I know you're watching these transmissions, and you still do opposite of what I've said, hey, maybe that you shouldn't, I'm like, dude, you're not going to get it. And I can't watch you actually literally recommend something that's going to put somebody over the edge. And I don't care if you think that your audience can't handle the J juice. It's not for you to decide. Okay? Right, John. So anyway, so then I have in my little slides to show that pain is the genesis of healing. Okay? The spark of life happens at conception, and then the last spark of life happens at death, because the body still wants to live, but the way the person takes care of their body will determine whether or not that spark of life is going to keep you going, or that will be your last spark. Okay? So pain is the spark of life in the beginning, and pain could be the spark of life at the end of your life. Okay? And so, you know, pain is biochemical triage and all that. And pain is a sign of imminent life or imminent death. Okay? So, this is something that is very important to understand. So give me 1 second. Laura Alice Bennett. See you later, pretty girl. You won't get the benefit of this information. All right. So then I also have another slide that talks about all of, well, actually it shows the 11 different systems. Cardiovascular system, the urinary tract system, I mean, all the different endocrine system, all the different systems. Okay, and that's your basically your RNA and DNA. How it gets expressed is you'll see visually, but that is your DNA, that is your RNA. Your RNA and DNA are made up of your 11 different systems and your organs. Okay? And so, and then right next to that, it talks about, in my little slideshow, the cancer, disease, chronic illness, viruses, and how they impact strong or weak bodies. For you to get a diagnosis, you already have predispositions and you have weaknesses that the viruses and bacteria and the fatty acid, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals will affect adversely. If you didn't have any diagnosis and you have any symptoms and you were perfectly healthy, you wouldn't have a diagnosis. It wouldn't even apply to you. You'd just be going along your merry way until something happens, and then you get a diagnosis, okay? And so with these diagnoses and with these imbalances that translate into cancer, cancer is a symptom. Cancer is a weakness in your body that viruses have exploited and have then systematically tried to recycle you back into earth. Okay, so cancer, no one dies from cancer, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so cancer is a symptom, and then all the different diagnoses from schizophrenia to mental illness to sexual predators to a little bit of a cold or a flu or even allergies is a sickness. However, the severity of the allergies and the sicknesses that you have then translates into war. So all these imbalances, all the sick people who are dying and reproducing, because reproduction comes from trauma to mitigate extinction, because if you have a traumatized body, the body knows it's on a death trajectory, drop seeds and procreate. So when the manifestations of those sicknesses and reproduction comes from or triggers into crime, war, what else? Suicide, homicide, activism, infanticide, human trafficking, disease, victim, predator, and prey. So every single thing you see in our society that causes you to get into a fight or flight mode or worry or fear is based upon the imbalances of your body, the RNA, how your genes are being expressed. And where did that happen? It happens from the imbalances in your fatty acid, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. When it happens, it doesn't matter. It could happen 300 years ago, and your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents are procreating, passing those genetics down the line. And that's why you see now family medical history. Okay, so that's where disease comes from, is the imbalances plus then the weaknesses that you've sustained in the past, present, what you're doing right now. All of your activities are creating mini traumas. And if you are an athlete, you are definitely creating traumas to the body that you're passing down to your kids, especially when you have kids. And here's the thing. So then when you are managing disease, which people are, and that's why people are not worried about the jelly juice or about allopathic holistic, because they're buying themselves time with all these different methodologies, which is like adaptation, disease, mucus, adaptation, disease, mucus, and how they handle that is with the therapies that then create even more mini traumas to the body. Okay, and remember, everything is connected, and you have vital organs. Okay, what are your vital organs? Your brain, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your liver. Okay, so when you have any imbalance in even any one little system or little organ in your body, it is a chain reaction. Now, how aggressive or how aggressive those chain reactions are based upon the severity of that trauma. So even an allergy, even though it's not going to, like, you know, even those people who have allergies, let's say, like, you know, they're sneezing pollen, it may not cause, you know, a heart attack, but it's still systematically weakening every single system in the body that's attached to it, which is everything. So you still have enough minerals, and based upon your lifestyle and your predisposition and your genetics and all of that, you can live with an allergy for a very long time, until then those weaknesses that are attached to that little allergy, you know, the other organs, other systems, then start breaking down, because the malabsorption rate is still higher than the absorption rate of nutrients. And that's one of the biggest key things, is it's malabsorption that is causing the degradation rate. And then where you're coming in, you could be coming in with so many issues with malabsorption, and your life will be very shortened. So those of you that are recommending detoxes and everything, you have no idea to what extent a person's insides are, as far as where they are on the spectrum between life and death, as far as in our society. Okay, so even just recommending kombucha or onions for someone that is sick, you could potentially kill them. Okay, so so all of the therapies, all of the immunotherapies, every single remedy that you see out on the internet, every single thing that you're thinking like, oh, garlic and turmeric and all this other crap, is actually, especially when you're using it to try to mitigate symptoms and manage your colds and your diseases, because people aren't just taking like a little bit, like, you know, they have in their food. No, they are taking it in large freaking amounts, because they go overboard. When someone says, oh, you're deficient in potassium, guess what? They're taking potassium supplements like they're freaking water. When someone says, oh yeah, you have parasites, what are they doing? They're taking diatomaceous earth like it is, like, you know, candy, and that will destroy you. So you don't realize to what extent, how much damage all of you that are recommending remedies and detoxes and pills and powders and supplements to your friends and family, and you're not even a doctor, you don't know to what extent, to what damage you're actually perpetrating on your friends and family. So then when you're dealing with the predispositions you already have, you're compounding it with the wrong chemistry, which is all the therapies, whether it's spirit therapy or immunotherapy, chemotherapy, drug therapy, physical therapy, talk therapy, social therapy. I don't care what therapy it is that you're doing, it's still compounding the issue. Guess what? That's weakening your vital organs. But what it's mostly weakening, that people are not paying attention to, is the heart. The cardiovascular system is heart disease, which is a disease, yes, but sudden cardiac death, okay, and what was the other one? Hypertrophic myopathy. All of that, when people just suddenly keel over, and they're either 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50, 60, 70, 80. You know when people are on their way at the door, because you know, sometimes, because you can see them, they're diagnosed with cancer, which is not what people die from. And they're battling cancer, and they're taking all these therapies, and they're doing the GoFundMe accounts and trying to pay for all this stuff in Mexico. And all of those therapies and the changing of the diet and all of that actually contributes to the weakness of the heart, the degradation of the cardiovascular system, the blood, the vessels, the fatty acids. You can have someone skinny with a lot of fat, okay? You can have someone obese with a lot of fatty acid. You can have someone obese that is very athletic and has a lot of muscle, so it's keeping the fat away until they retire. And then when you stop moving and stop doing all that exercise, you don't have the luxury of those hormones to keep that fatty acid away, and that's when the fat builds up, because you haven't really got to the root issue, which is bringing in the right conglomerations, the right chemistry of elements that will keep the biochemistry well balanced. And so when somebody's in hospice, they could have an active dying situation. But what ultimately kills someone, no matter what they were diagnosed with, diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, they could be diagnosed with, in hospice, with breast cancer, with whatever. It doesn't even matter what it is. The actual last hurrah is the very low blood pressure or a sudden situation. Okay, but very low blood pressure where the blood doesn't reach the brain or the heart. And either they're brain dead or the heart just stops pumping. And then they just slip away. Or you have somebody like you see on my Facebook. Go down my timeline on my Facebook. A guy my husband worked with. There were signs. He told his friends right before he passed away that he had chest pains. And he was at a truck stop when that was happening. He never went into and told someone that he was having chest pains. He needed to see a doctor to do something. He just went to bed. And who knows how long he suffered before he passed away. So there are those scenarios where someone looks perfectly healthy relative to society, okay? And you don't know their medical history because, it's like the HIPAA thing, your medical records are not made to the public. So, your Facebook friend is not going to have access to your medical records to know whether or not they should be recommending kombucha to you. And so a person could be holding so much destruction inside. And it's just a matter of when that the body already is dealing with that weakness, the heart, or the blood isn't pumping correctly, or there's these big fatty deposits that was never dealt with and it's making its way to the heart or the brain. And then you see symptoms, but then people ignore them, or they're not in a position to deal with them because they're driving, or they just think it's like stress or whatever. And then the actual event happens where they don't survive it. The fact that people survive strokes and heart attacks says that they had enough minerals, enough nutrients, enough gas in their blood to keep them going another day. But if they don't change their ways in the right way, applying the right chemistry, they will then not possibly survive the next symptom. So that's why I get so mad at you guys that are on my Facebook saying you love the J juice, recommending food remedies, kombucha, apple cider vinegar, all that stuff. Because when the body is made up of fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals, the body, and then all of the food supply and the remedies are made up of the same thing, all the medicines are made up of the same thing, and you have no idea the balance that person has in their body and or what their predispositions are, you are contributing to the accelerated degradation. So and that's a hard pill to swallow, literally. That's a hard pill to swallow, literally, for people who are so used to recommending supplements and herbs like cannabis or kombucha to their friends because they hate big pharma so much. That's a sign of an imbalance when you have such a hatred and you're demonizing any agency out there, when you're so paranoid to think that the government is out to get you. If you want to shut down the vaccines and big pharma, then don't age. Stop reproducing. But no, people want to age and they want to reproduce. And so we have to have experimentation on animals and humans. People are getting abortions, yes, because they're reproducing and they don't want to take care of the child. So those aborted fetus cells get used in science to give you the cures that you're all looking for. So if you truly want to stop all of this atrocities against humanity and animals, then you wouldn't age in our society. You wouldn't contract cancer, disease, and chronic illness. You wouldn't be having babies left and right when you haven't even fixed yourself. But people are, and you can't stop it but then you have no business being an activist against it when you're actively creating it. The sick people in our society are creating the misery in our society. Even the walking sick people, the ones that you can't even tell. That's why I'm mad at that girl the other day that I took out of the group, because she's saying, oh, and I'm putting out there about the vegans and vegetarians, the extreme side of it, as far as where they look like they're basically anorexic, which they are. Vegan and vegetarianism is another way of legitimizing anorexia, the clean eating world. And so she was saying, oh, you know, you can't discount the ones that are doing it correctly. And the one guy is aging. No, that is not an exemplification of a vegan vegetarian doing it correctly. And you have no idea what he's dealing with. And then the other girl is like cute, you know, but you remember, cute only lasts so long. People capitalize on their cuteness and their looks for a window of time, just like when you're in a job for like 30 years, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, that's when people retire in the military. It's like 20 years. You put your 20 years in the military, you get to retire, because they know they're capitalizing on that little window of opportunity where you are coherent, you can learn stuff, you're good at your job, okay? And when you are doing physical work, 20 years is about probably a good time to capitalize on a person. When you're behind a desk and you're thinking, you don't have to be physically fit. You can be very obese and be in like Congress and sit behind a desk and just process information. You don't have to be running up and down the steps all the time or doing, you know, labor intensive work. But those that are in the labor intensive industries out there, they can't afford to be vegan and vegetarian. And they will age very rapidly because of the kind of work that they do. So, you know, nobody knows what people are dealing with. And so when you're in the pain mitigation industries, okay, you're essentially stopping the healing hormones. This is the biggest thing about pain that is totally mischaracterized, and why I'm harping on everyone about not recommending food as a remedy or remedies as a remedy for pain, is because you have no idea what they're dealing with. You have no idea their biochemistry. You have no idea that cannabis or that one food is going to do them in. Better to not recommend anything when they're dealing with a symptom than to recommend something. Because yes, everybody's biochemistry is different. Even if someone could be allergic to like a certain food, okay? You know, the whole thing with the J juice is, you know, you're getting the electrolytes. You're getting the electrolytes. So that's going to carry you through. Even if you have a predisposition, like, you know, heart issues or stroke issues or cardiovascular issues, the electrolytes are going to carry you through. And then you have the lactic acid, the probiotics. And then you have the micro and macro nutrition from the cabbage and kale. Then you have the water as a carrier force. You're not going to hurt anybody as far as them dying from doing the juice. But if somebody already has malabsorption, they already have a major allergy, they already have major imbalances, and you're recommending a food to manage their symptoms, or recommending kombucha, or recommending apple cider vinegar, or colloidal silver, or garlic, or turmeric, you have no idea to what extent the damage that's already been done to their heart and to anything else. And so that food, potentially, if it's not paired with the J juice in some way, okay, could do them in too. You can overdose on nutrition in the allopathic holistic world. Now, with my group, people are kind of helping each other out, dealing with the symptoms, but they're doing the J juice at the same time. I still don't like people recommending pain mitigation protocols with the J juice in my group. I really don't like it, but I know it happens because people are trying to figure out how to manage their life. And I do have in my book right now how to deal with pain with the J juice. I don't recommend anything but the J juice on how to deal with pain. Now, if you happen to get relief from pain with the J juice, it means that you healed that quickly. Okay? So some of you are lucky that way, where you take the J juice on, you know, topically or internally for some kind of pain, and it disappears. And some of you are going to experience pain on the JJs because you still have more healing to do. So that's why I say better to not recommend a remedy on someone that is having pain, because let me tell you, if they were in imminent danger, they'd be calling 911 or the ER. They'd be in the ER like right there if they felt they were in actual imminent danger. But you know, most people on Facebook are a bunch of whiners. Oh, I have a headache, or I have this. What do I do for the Oh, I have a cold. And then everybody and their mother comes out with a remedy and all this shit. And I'm just like, oh my God. Okay? People, when you look at people based upon the elements, they're made up of fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals. They're not John, they're not Kevin, they're not Jane. They are a human that is made up of fatty acids, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. And obviously, if they're dealing with a symptom, they have imbalances and the body's trying to regulate. If they were in imminent danger, they would know it. They'd be calling 911 to go get some kind of emergency services. But if they're just experiencing discomfort because of a symptom, because they happen to be, it's like September, right off the heels of summertime, going through an environmental change, climate change, because from summer to fall, it gets colder. The body has to now adapt. You're going to get symptoms. But then guess what people do? They recommend all of these freaking things that are made up of fatty acid, amino acids, prohormones, and minerals. And some are more condensed in the minerals. Some are more condensed in the fatty acids. Some are more condensed in the prohormones. And then people have already malabsorption and imbalances. And so you recommending something of that nature in the pain mitigation protocols, such as remedies and detoxes, would actually contribute to the acceleration of the weakening of their systems, which then eventually would then contribute to a heart attack or a stroke, because you have no idea what it is that they're carrying inside. You don't know their predisposition. When someone yesterday passed away, not yesterday, December 4th, passed away from a heart attack, no one even had a clue. It was so sudden. So how do you know that when you recommend something such as a remedy or kombucha or apple cider vinegar, that it's not going to end up where that guy is? He already sustained a bunch. I mean, he's a big dude. And I thought that, hey, if you have enough minerals, it'll carry you through. It's not even just minerals in your body, okay? It's also, how is his heart? How are your heart condition? What, you know, what's your predisposition? But even if you don't know a predisposition, you can have a skinny fat person who's diabetic, who has a precursor to heart disease, or you can have an obese person, a big dude with a big gut that has all this visceral fat they're carrying in the front. And that will be a precursor to a heart attack if you don't do something different. Not just take, you know, Advil or aspirin at the sign of something. Yeah, that's a very quick remedy when you have a Bayer aspirin, which my husband is doing, which, okay, fine. I'd rather have him do that than not have something. And, you know, he has his phone close to him and he has a Bayer aspirin somewhere in his bunk in the truck. But I worry about him because he's at that age. He has a gut too. And I figure his minerals could carry him through, but, you know, but also there's heart issues in different families. And so all of these remedies out there are actually accelerating the death process, bringing you closer to death. And then these heart attacks and sudden cardiac arrest and all these things, they come out of the blue, but it's not really out of the blue. It's because they're applying the wrong chemistry to their body, systematically degrading them. And then if you do have a predisposition or you do have something in your family as far as heart stuff, then you won't know when you're going to kick off. You roll the dice every single day you get into your truck. You roll the dice every single day you go to your job. You roll the dice every single day you do your running and your exercise and all that stuff. So nobody dies from cancer. In hospice, they die from heart failure, stroke, mini heart attacks, but no one dies from cancer. Cancer is a symptom of a larger issue that's going on. That is a systematic weakening of the body. Now, you could have a cancer that is like stage 4 or you're in hospice and it totally ravages you, but the actual last spark of life happens when the blood stops flowing to the heart. Heart failure, brain dead is the actual last thing. So everybody will at some point, if they don't change the way in which they look at life and death, you will trigger a heart attack or a stroke and not survive it. Some of you will trigger a heart attack and stroke and you'll survive it, and that's then, okay, your insurance policy to figure some stuff out. And some of you have already the red flags let you know that you are a candidate for that if you don't change your ways. So better to not recommend remedies to your friends. Better that if they have any kind of issue, they need to go to the doctor or do J-juice and go to the doctor, because J-juice would not put anyone over the edge. It has the right balance of all the nutrients. So when you're trying to self-medicate yourself, when people try to self-medicate and they don't know what the hell they're doing, they're making it 10 times as worse. When your friends are selling you scobies for kombucha, which is highly acidic, that actually contributes to heart disease. Okay? When you have all this fat and these empty calories that are clogging up your arteries and capillaries, and your blood is thickening, and you don't have enough electrolytes in your blood, enough minerals, enough nutrients, who's to say that that symptom that you get, which is a heart attack or stroke, who's to say if you're going to survive it? So that's why Dr. Phil shot himself in the foot by demonizing the salt and my drink, because it has all the components to keep someone alive. That's why that lady was on Dr. Phil. She survived it, but she didn't understand what symptoms are. It's like a cattle prod. It's like a wake-up call. The body found a way to survive despite the way she abused it, but she may not be lucky next time. She may not be so lucky next time. So, and so, yeah, so with the J-juice, then I have it on the back wall where you go through, what is it I said? Yeah, you do the cabbage and the kale and the pink Himalayan salt. That's fermented. Still take your prescription drugs and still have your implants until you want to take them out. And then pain and symptoms are bringing up the prostaglandin hormone, which aids in the healing process. And that also is the pain sensation that you get. And then what else? Oh yeah, mucus barometer. Oh yeah. Yeah. So then the adaptation, mucus, and then reversal. So every single time you go into different environments, you're going to try to adapt to it, and then mucus may come up based upon just where your biochemistry. It's always fluctuating. So if you go into an environment, especially those of you who are truck drivers, you go into an environment where there's more gas in the air or more fumes in the air, you might be blowing your nose. That's the body trying to adapt to a new environment. When I go, like I used to live behind an oil refinery, so yeah, I was a little bit mucusy sometimes in the morning when they were burning their stacks, or during springtime when the pollen's out there in the air. In the beginning, my body will regulate, and I will blow my nose if there's too much in the air, and then there's the homeostasis. But if there's so much in the air, then I stay indoors. But if the pollen numbers come down a little bit, then my body's able to adapt. But remember, if you go into a gas chamber, like a tear gas chamber, you see those guys that do that in the military, and they're coming out like mucus and everything and crying and all of that. Yeah, that's too many parts per million for the body to handle. So that's when you have so much mucus coming out at once. Okay, so when that happens and you're in an environment, that should tell you to get the hell out or go inside, because that's too many parts per million for the body to adapt that quickly. So now you have to understand adaptation, mucus, and then reversal of your issues. And it's a constant loop with the J-juice, but you'll be constantly living. You're not going to be rolling the dice wondering if you're going to die from a heart attack, whether it's a prolonged sickness where you're on your deathbed in hospice actively dying, or you kick off like that from a sudden cardiac death, which happened to one of my husband's coworkers. That's pretty much what's in everybody's cards that have the same kind of characteristics. That there are indicators to show that you are on that trajectory. So it's not even being obese or being skinny. because you can, be both and still have issues. Then they're like, oh, then take all these statins, these cholesterol things and whatever, but those have their own consequences. Even just sipping the J juice just a little bit to break up the fatty deposits, to give your body a little bit of nutrition, to give your body electrolytes that you're probably missing. Because I'm telling you, when you guys get flu symptoms and you're throwing up and diarrhea everywhere, totally dehydrated because you got a bug or a virus that your body isn't able to handle, or you got food poisoning, then you go to the hospital and what's in those IV bags? Sodium, potassium, magnesium, glucose. That's everything that's in the J juice minus the glucose. There's no glucose in the J juice, but in the protocol, we have fruit. So you're getting everything and then some in the J juice, more than what a hospital gives you. They give you the most, the least amount of stuff, but enough to stabilize you, but not enough to really bring you back to where you were before. Just enough to keep you like, okay, you're okay. But every time you go to the hospital, every time you get diagnosed, every time you take a pill, power supplements, or detox, you are now putting another nail in your coffin, triggering potential indicators of sudden cardiac death or a prolonged active dying type of situation. I know it sounds very morbid, but it's better what you're in for and that you can do something about it at some point. May not be right now for some of you because you're still riding high on whatever it is that you're doing. But at some point, you're going to have to face the music, or the music will face you. It will force you to deal with your decisions in your lifestyle, in your belief system. Okay, so I think now we figured out nobody dies from cancer. Cancer is a symptom. Everybody on this earth, their parents, they die from heart failure, lack of blood flow to the heart, or die from a stroke. Yes, they may have exhibited Alzheimer's, they may have exhibited other types of symptoms, the age-related diseases, but everyone that dies on this earth dies from heart failure because everything is connected. You have so many opportunities to reverse your issues. You have 11 different systems with how many organs in your body, with the potential, with all these different conglomerations of nutrients. So it's not like God or life didn't give you a chance to reverse your situation. You just choose to ignore the indicators. Just like, a combustion engine, if you don't keep the belts going and the compressor going and keep all the parts and the oil changes and everything, the car won't start, or the alternator's all messed up, the diodes are all messed up. Everything is connected. You take out one major piece or mess with one major piece in an engine, the engine won't work. You could probably be okay with not having a distributor cap for a minute until you start seeing your car smoke. That happened to me. I forgot to put the oil cap, I guess, on top of it. Was still sitting on top of my oil tank, and I drove like 50 miles. I'm like, why is my car smoking? Oh, oil is just like leaking out everywhere. But the car was still running. But so you can get away with superficial things for a minute. But if you just not put oil in your car and not put gas in your car, there's no freaking way your car is going to move. You take out the compressor, your car overheats, or the water pump, you take the car overheats. If the belt frays and whatever, then it's not able to do whatever it does when it comes to combustion. Okay? The same thing with the body. You can get away with taking out organs for a certain amount of time. You can get away with doing nips and tucks for a certain amount of time. But eventually, those weaknesses are going to then make its way to the vital organs. And that's where people don't realize that what they do today is going to affect their heart as far as diagnoses and their health disposition. So don't think because you don't have cancer in your family and you don't have cancer and all that stuff, or even any sign of it, that you're home free. Don't fall into that false sense of security, because your heart and the fatty deposits, you know, and you can only do exercise for so long. Let me say, oh yeah, I'll do exercise to keep those fatty, you know, deposits away from my heart and all that stuff. But exercise has its own issues too. It still degrades you, and people do die in the methane and all of their stuff if they have weaknesses, predispositions that they knew nothing about. So it's all about balance. But first you need to get your body well balanced, get your body proportioned, bring in the necessary nutrients, feed your body correctly, strengthen those weaknesses, and then balance out the activity to rest and all of that. I mean, but first, with the whole thing with the J juice is you sit on your ass and you drink the J juice. You let the body heal. You give it the rest that it needs. Yes, you have to work, that's fine. But then on your days off, put that as a priority. Because you're going to have to heal the past issues, the present issues, as well as the future triggers. Those antibodies, all of those viruses you've been exposed to, which is good, you have protection, right? Those antibodies, but then if you allow those antibodies to also accumulate, they also can turn into a virus that will then further weaken your system, destroy the cells, like, you know, like cancer. And then, you know, all the cancer treatments and all the remedies and all that stuff will then mess with your electrolyte balances and then further weaken your vital organs to then sustain a heart attack at some point. Everything is connected. And that's why I'm saying every single therapy is more trauma to the body, mind, and spirit. So that's why I've chased away most of these obvious therapists in my group who are so boisterous and letting everybody know that they're therapists. They do all this therapy stuff. Well, then you better, if you're doing therapy and you're boisterous in my group, you better be promoting me on your platform publicly, not like making me as a redheaded stepchild, but publicly. My therapy is not first and foremost. Do the J juice if you happen to have a few healing symptoms that you want a little bit of relief, but not too much because you don't want to undermine your healing process. I'm here, but still, I don't want anybody procuring new clients in my Jilly Juice group. I don't want anybody giving remedies to anybody in my group. So in a lot of ways, there is no room for boisterous therapists in my group. And if they are boisterous in my group, they're being cut off. I'm focusing, I'm narrowing on them on who the hell is this? What are they doing? Oh, they're not promoting me. Literally, they're not putting me on their platform. I'm not part of their symposium. So anyways, happy Saturday, everybody. Happy freaking Saturday. So this is just more for you guys to just think about. I'm not saying you got to make any quick decisions, but, you know, time is a ticking for a lot of you. And, you know, if you are not doing the J juice, it's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. Some of you have really good genetics and you'll stretch out your death process for, you know, maybe do 100, but those are rare nowadays. When someone at 62 keels over from a heart attack, 62, some of you are not that far behind. He's a big dude, but even a big dude or a small dude, it all has to do with the condition of the heart and your fatty acids and your amino acids and your electrolyte imbalances. So wake up, everybody. All right, have a good day. Bye.